On my way over, I was trying to do the math in my head as to how long we've actually known each other, because it's going on, I'm going to say 21 years.
Which year?
Wow, we probably met in, well, I guess that would be year 2000.
2000 or 2002.
Yeah, something like that. Because, I think I was like 20. I think I was already bartending at that time.
Yep.
I was working in nightlife, so I was 23 when I was bartending.
Yep.
And, and we met way.
I think we crossed paths a few times during that time.
Yeah.
But I don't think it was around till 2002.
Okay.
Yeah, and I have a vivid story of meeting Zark in 2002.
We're not going to get into that story during this
story.
Oh, yeah.
It's a good story.
All right, let's hear it.
So it was 2002, I think fall. And do you remember Budo?
Oh, yeah.
It was the Budo grand opening. And this place was the place in Toronto for nightlife.
Yeah.
It was cool. Everyone dressed nicely. The women were beautiful. The men were sharp. And it was the grand opening.
Yeah.
And I remember being there that night. And I remember seeing Zark in a beautiful, tailored, grayish silver Hugo Boss suit.
Good memory. All right.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was dressed nicely too at that time. But I was very intrigued. I was like, whoa.
Who's this other guy dressing well? Who do you think he is?
I was like, this guy's got it together, and you were with a beautiful blonde at that time.
It's possible.
I'm not sure who that was.
I don't know.
Beautiful girl. I remember her as well. And I was just very intrigued. I was very taken back because you were very polished. And as far as style goes in Toronto, you didn't see a lot of that, especially with men.
Right.
That was the first time.
Yeah.
So you made an impression.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. And so you're right. That was in the promotional part of my career.
Yep.
So I was hosting the Saturday nights at Budo.
Yeah.
And I think I even remember we met at the back lounge, that kind of back elevated VIP. Yeah. Yeah. I remember us standing back there having a conversation.
Yeah.
And wow. Yeah, that
it was a beautiful spot.
It was a really nice venue. And to your point about men's fashion, back then, we didn't have that many options.
No.
And, because I used to go to Miami, New York, LA, I would shop abroad. And I know you had also spent some time in New York. So you were aware that, there's a whole world of men's fashion that just wasn't available in Toronto at that time.
And, the thing is, and you still see it a little bit now, but there was a strict dress code back then.
Yeah.
Guys had to wear a collared shirt, dress pants, dress shoes, and everybody just looked terrible.
Yeah.
Because, they were wearing those untailored garments,
floppy.
It was horrible.
Yeah.
And then comes a guy like you in this beautiful designer tailored suit with nice polished shoes, hair slicked back. It was cool.
Yeah. I always used to say, like, a nice jacket makes an impression. Yep. And I've always been into very vibrant colors because if you're in the room and you're networking, you're only there for 45 minutes to an hour, you want to make sure you make an impression.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
And feel good about yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah. When you're wearing a nice jacket, wearing something tailored that was made for you, you just show up with this confidence, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny because a friend of mine and I were just speaking about this last night, looking at what's going on King Street or just Toronto fashion in general. And I mean, this isn't just specific to Toronto, but people are in track pants. People are in like $1,000 sneakers. Women are going out wearing oversized sweatshirts. And King Street used to be a place where people would make an effort, get dressed up, like go out. And it was a thing. Women were, nice dresses, heels, and men were, wearing nice blazers or, sports coats and just making an effort. And now it's just like, it's interesting what's happening.
Yeah, it has shifted quite a bit. And I feel that all comes from pop culture as well.
Yeah.
Especially when you see the NBA players,
yeah.
They're all dressed, dripped down in designer clothing. And that makes a huge impression on, once again, pop culture, the hip hop world, which is, taking over the music industry. And that sets a lot of impression on the younger generation, right? And I don't dislike it. I still do see some people getting dressed up. There's nights I dress up, and there's nights I want to wear a crew neck or a hoodie from my store, or a pair of fashion sneakers. And I feel like you shouldn't be refused entry into a venue because you're dressed a different way. Because you lived in Miami, I lived in New York, and you would see a guy sitting there in a white t-shirt and a New York Yankee hat, and he could have the biggest bankroll in the whole venue. Yeah. It's not about your suit or your shoes. And
it's about the vibe that you show up with. And I learned that working in Miami, because in Toronto, working at Fluid or some of these venues, it was like, you check out what kind of shoes are they wearing, are they looking polished? Are they looking like there's someone who's going to come in and spend, a few $100?
And
back then, a few $100 was a lot of money. Yeah. And working in Miami, working the door at some of the venues, I'd see a guy roll up and he's basically wearing flip-flops or jeans, white t-shirt, but he just hopped out of his like convertible Rolls. So in Miami, it was more about, okay, meet someone, have some engagement, get a feel for, are they the type of person with the right vibe and energy that's going to add to the event. And living and working in Miami, working the door down there really taught me about how to curate a crowd, how to create an experience where it's going to draw in and entertain a certain mindset.
For sure.
So, and I know, you learned a lot living in New York as well. And, it's interesting that we're, starting this conversation off with fashion because, you made that transition or part of your journey. You've always been fashionable, but now fashion is actually a big part of your business. But before we get into all of that, we've, I would say, lived parallel lives in many ways, and we've known each other for like 2 decades now, which is crazy. That makes us sound really, really old when we say we've known each other for 2 decades. Vintage, yeah, classic, OGs, yeah. And, we've both lived that promoter life, a club owner life, restaurant owner life, and then, through that, developing different skills and a network and different things that have allowed us to branch off and do different things, So
absolutely.
I'd love for you to share a little bit about your professional history and timeline. And, one of the things that I find equally intriguing is, some of the choices you've made as far as your own health. And like, I don't know if this camera is going to be able to pick it up, but this guy's skin is like flawless. Like he's like Benjamin Button. He's like going back in time.
It's the cycle water, folks.
It's the cycle water.
I drink 5 of these a day.
It has stem cell in it. It has telomere production. So
thank you.
No, you look great. You're so clear, and I've known you a long time. So I've witnessed your evolution and growth over the last 20 years. I'd love for you to share a bit about your professional background because people know you. They see you around. Obviously,
sure.
You're a staple in the city and Toronto nightlife. And, you've gone through this transformation, which I've witnessed because of how long I've known you. I'm aware of it. However, I don't know if other people really know the growth and the shifts that you've had because where you're at is a result of your mindset and your discipline and your daily practice. So, I would just love to dive into all of that and just have you share.
It's a long story.
We got about an hour, about 45 minutes?
Where should we start?
So, when we met, so you got into, when you moved back from New York, shortly after you got into throwing events.
2005.
Yeah.
So 2005, I was back in Toronto. I lived in New York for many years. And when I left Toronto, I felt like there wasn't a lot for it to offer me. Mm-hmm. At least that's what I thought.
Yeah.
I barely finished high school. I didn't go to college or university. And, I started going down the wrong path in life, hanging around the wrong people and just getting myself into a little bit of trouble. And I took it as an opportunity to leave the city. You hear most stories about people moving from small towns and moving to Toronto. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm born and raised in Toronto, and Toronto was a small town to me at that point. So I decided to leave. I lived there for many years and did everything and anything you could imagine just to make ends meet. Right. But one great thing that I learned about living in that city was how to hustle, how to just instill this work ethic inside myself. And it didn't matter if it was a taxi driver I met, or someone from the financial district, or someone from Broadway. Everybody was working 2 jobs, right? And so I just got into that mentality of work. Did very well for myself, made a lot of money, invested in real estate at a very young age. And when the time was right, I would visit Toronto periodically, and I would see its growth. You know, everything from the Toronto Raptors to the architecture to the condominiums to the nightlife scene. You know, I would see guys like you. I would see guys like Charles Caboose. I would see guys like Mike Henry and even Billy at that time evolving in the nightlife scene. And because those were the events I would go to whenever I would visit Toronto, when I would come home. And I lived there for quite a while. I moved back, and I knew that it was something I wanted to get into. And myself, alongside my business partner at the time, we decided to get into the nightlife game. And that was around 2005.
Okay.
And we met some very, very good people. And like I said, there were always a few people that we really looked up to, you being one of them. Charles Caboose, Mike Henry, and
not Ralph Matty.
And of course, Ralph Matty. Of course, Ralph Matty. Yes.
You know, if you didn't throw his name in there, he'd be like, "Oh, bro, what the fuck?"
Of course, Ralph Matty, and you know, even Thanos at that time. There's a huge list, but just to name a few, of course. And I decided to get into the nightlife game, and it was always something that was part of me. Even when I did live in New York, I would work at some of the hotels and some of the bars, doing odd jobs. And but Toronto really evolved at that point.
Yeah, there was a turning point where Toronto went from being this sleepy 1 a.m. last call place to, now it's got bottle service, and now celebrities and athletes are starting to discover, wow,
well, and you would see
a lot of beautiful women in Toronto.
You know, and obviously Vince Carter helped that quite a bit. You know, the music scene was taking off as well. And fast forward to where we are today, it's just it's become a world-class city.
Yeah, it's crazy to see, because every year I come back for summertime to enjoy the best season in Toronto, and I'm blown away at how year after year it just keeps expanding and evolving, and the city, I almost don't recognize parts of it anymore because it's growing so quickly. And it's interesting to see what a melting pot it's become, especially, what I'm noticing now is like a lot of the immigrants that moved here from India, from Africa, from Arab countries in the 80s, the children that they had are now in their 30s. And you go out and you see it. Like, Toronto's always been multicultural, but it's very, very evident now that Toronto is actually the most multicultural city in the world. Yeah,
without a doubt.
And it's been and it's reflective in the music, in the food, and just even in the art scene. So it's beautiful to see this melting pot that it's become. And it's interesting how things are shifting and evolving. And for you have, and you're still involved in nightlife.
Absolutely.
I know you're doing, a couple of different events a week. I was actually at your event on Friday at Bisha, which was a lot of fun. And, so I've always known you to be very disciplined, very focused, very driven. How have you managed to remain healthy, remain so committed and dedicated to your personal health and just evolving while being in what some people would consider to be a very, toxic industry?
Absolutely. You have to find balance in whatever you do. It doesn't matter what position you have in life. Balance is key. And that's something I learned a very long time ago. I would say around 5 years ago, I really started putting my health first before anything else. And
was there anything that happened that kind of was a catalyst for that choice?
When you start to become successful and you start to see success, some demons can come in.
For sure.
And I would see that. And
Now, you would see that in yourself or in others?
I would see it in myself and others.
Okay, got it.
And I put that to a stop immediately. You know, you really need to know who you are as a person. And needless to say, I started putting myself first. And I said, whatever I'm going to do, however I'm going to go about my day, it starts with me and my happiness and my inner peace. You know, you're not going to wake up happy every day, but, you know, you have to do your best. And fitness has become a huge part of my life. And
I mean, you've always been in shape. You've been, you know, training from the time that I know you. So what's different about fitness for you now than it was, say, 15 years ago?
You know, when you and I were growing up, it was all about having big biceps and a big chest. Fitness to me is, you know, it's your heart, it's your cardiovascular, it's your brain. You know, you want all of those to function. And to be strong as well. And that goes along with your diet. About 5 years ago, I became plant-based as well. And that changed my life completely as well. It's probably why I have nice skin. And a lot of water, a gallon of water a day.
Okay.
And
I need to up my water content. That's the second time it's come up.
Cycle water.
Need more cycle water. Did they make large format? No? Okay.
We need a gallon can. It's, you know, listen, the nightlife can be toxic, but it can also be extremely pleasant as well. I've met so many great people like yourself throughout the years, people that have inspired me. Without nightlife, I would have had the opportunity to open up my store, you know, to buy real estate. I wouldn't have been able to do any of that without nightlife and the position I had in nightlife. So I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful for the good people I've met. I'm also grateful for the bad people I've met, because without those people, I wouldn't have been able to grow. You know, absolutely. And I feel like growth is so important to all of us, and it's something we strive to do every day.
Yeah. And to your point about, you know, nightlife and the perspective that you choose to have on it, you know, some people fall into nightlife because they're just kind of at an in-between place in life, and it just seems like fun and it's quick money. Okay, sure. Let's just do this. And, you know, they're in for a good time, not a long time.
Sure.
Whereas I think where you and I, you know, shared the same experience is when I discovered nightlife at 18. I dropped out of high school at 17. After getting kicked out of my third high school, I'm like, I don't think school is for me. You know, I got a job in nightlife. And when I realized after I started promoting in my early 20s, like, wait a minute, I can get paid really good money to throw parties, to do what I love. And there's a demand for this. I realized, oh shit.
And have a great time.
I'm like, I can get paid for doing what I love. And this is like, this can be a real thing.
Absolutely.
You know, for me, any of my experimentation with drugs was more in the rave scene, you know, before I got into the industry, and never been a big drinker because, like you, want to get up, hit the gym, go for a run, and feel good. So I didn't fall into those vices that many do in this industry. And I saw that, wow, this is my ticket. Like, I'm getting on this train and I'm riding it as far as I can. And we both saw that, like, okay, we had the work ethic and we found something that was lucrative and we gave it 110%. And for me, nightlife as well, you know, like being a high school dropout from Scarborough, from immigrant parents, like this was my shot. And, you know, it's something that I look back on with fond memories, even though, you know, there's some choices I made that might have been a little questionable. You know, it's all part of the journey.
Like anybody in life.
Absolutely, yeah. So it's
and you killed it. Like Zark was one of the original trendsetters and tastemakers in Toronto.
I appreciate
you
that.
really were like a local celebrity in the city.
Thank you.
And you inspired a lot of people like myself, and you inspired a lot of people you probably don't even know.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's interesting to bump into people now that I've made this shift and I'm doing something different. You know, at first I think a lot of people didn't know I think at first a lot of people were questioning whether, like, okay, is this for real? Like, you know, you went from being the King Street Club restaurant guy to like some spiritual guru living in Costa Rica. Like, what's going on, you know? But now that it's been, you know, a few years, people are seeing like, okay, it's actually legit.
I always talk about this, you know, there's many chapters in life, and we weren't put on this planet to do one thing.
No, absolutely.
Do many things. Try new things. Even if you fail, who cares? I look at some people that, and there's nothing wrong with this, but they've been doing the same thing their whole life, and they'll continue to do the same thing their whole life. Once again, there's nothing wrong with it. But if you're doing it just because you're comfortable, and
it's safe and secure.
That's when you start to resent yourself and have regrets in the future.
Absolutely. And to your point about the challenges you've been through, like that's where the greatest growth and learning happens. And, I'm friends with a doctor who works in the ER, and he spends time with a lot of people that are at end of life. And he says that when he speaks to them, they never talk about regrets of what they did. They're regrets about what they didn't do.
Absolutely.
And for any of those who are watching who, are questioning your new path, questioning changing it up, like you said, you just got to step forward, just do it, just try it. And look, if you fail, and there's a reframe I'd like to, share about failing, failing, if we start a restaurant, because I've opened a restaurant that you could say failed, Doku at the Cosmopolitan Hotel.
I DJ'd there one night. It was fun.
Yeah, it was fun while it lasted. It only lasted a year and a half, and then we just couldn't keep up. So some would consider that a failure, right? And the failure of the restaurant is not the failure of me. The restaurant failed to meet the expectations that I had for it. Now, does that mean I was a failure? No, because I did everything I could to try to make that restaurant a success. However, I now know that there were things beyond my control that I just didn't have an understanding of. And I often say you learn more from your failures than you do from your successes, because closing that business, losing a lot of money, and looking back and really questioning why did it go down that way, I learned some very, very profound, important lessons that helped me to be successful in the future. So just because you have done a project, created something that has failed, understand that it wasn't you that failed. It just failed to meet the expectation.
Absolutely.
It didn't meet the expectation that you hoped for it. And there's knowledge and wisdom that you can take from that to apply to be successful the next time around that you step forward to do something. But if you fail and you give up, then you've actually failed.
Absolutely.
Because what does Wayne Gretzky say? You miss every shot you never take, something like that. Some hockey quote. Yeah. So because I know you opened that restaurant, Harlow.
Hudson Kitchen.
Right. And that had a run. But
so we opened up Hudson Kitchen on Dundas West, and it's so crazy. So we opened it film festival weekend.
Yeah, I think you had like Brad Pitt dying there the first night or something.
We had Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie. This is when they were separating. No, Jennifer Aniston.
Okay.
We had Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston in the restaurant, dining at different tables because they couldn't be together.
Oh, wow.
Every night, we had George Clooney. We had everybody at this restaurant opening week. My phone was blowing up for reservations. It was killing it. 1 year, you couldn't find a way to book a reservation at this restaurant that I was happy to be part of at the time. And then after that, same scenario as Doku.
Yeah.
It didn't last long. At that time, I invested with a few people, and sometimes too many people in one project isn't a good thing.
Yeah. Too many chefs in the kitchen. And I learned the hard way. So what were some of the important lessons you learned from that business not succeeding? I'm not going to say failed, not succeeding.
For us, for me at that point, I didn't know too much that was going on the back end. Okay. I guess I was considered, a face of the project. As if I were to get into a business now, I need to know everything. I ask a million questions about one thing, and I need to know it all.
Got it.
And at that point, I didn't. You know.
Because you're so caught up in the excitement of, I own a restaurant. You're standing at the front of the restaurant.
Successful guy with this successful guy with this successful guy. How can this go wrong?
Yeah, the identity, the ego takes over.
The ego took over, and it was a shame. It was a great restaurant, great food. But
nice space too.
It
probably ahead of its time because it was on Dundas Street. If it had opened now,
Absolutely.
Would've been slammed.
I probably wouldn't have dined there anymore because I'm vegan.
Yeah.
And, it would have been a failure anyway.
Yeah.
Nightclubs as well. I opened up a nightclub. That was a bust as well. You know what I mean?
Which one was that?
Cinema.
Cinema, right.
Yeah.
Right. Before Morrow.
Before Morrow. Or after Morrow.
Okay.
But learned a lot of things through that project as well.
That was a big venue.
It was a big venue.
Yeah.
Killed it. Had fun. Yeah. But you learn.
Yeah. So tell me about your current business, because as I said, you've always been involved in fashion, always been a man of great style.
Thank you.
And now you're helping others.
I was in Paris Fashion Week with my business partner Jacob, and this was many, many years ago. He was a buyer at another store at the time, and we were just walking down the streets of Paris, summer night, and we were just talking about how we should open up our own store one day, and we kept it under wraps for a very long time, and we just started working behind the scenes and creating something that I felt the city was missing. And we created Area Plus 001, which is our men's fashion boutique on Ossington and Queen. And we're in our third year.
Congrats.
Thank you. And it's going great. It's going great. Like, we're having record-breaking months. The brands that we're bringing aboard are all high level. And we didn't start that way. It was a challenge as well. It was very scary, and you have this thought in the back of your mind: is this going to be a failure? Is this going to last?
Yeah.
And
so how did you, having two businesses that weren't successful, and now you're getting into a new business which you've never owned a retail store before? What were you telling yourself? Like, what had to shift within you to go ahead and step into something else you've never done before?
Because just like I said, you have to just go for it, no matter what. Try what if you're passionate about something, you have to go for it, or you're going to regret it. And even though I had those two businesses, one was not a complete failure because I made all my money back.
Oh, perfect.
But one was a big failure, the restaurant.
Yeah.
And I lost a lot of money. But that being said, I always had nightlife. I always had the promotion game where I was making a killing, and I was able to make that money back. Yeah. And I didn't stop until I did. Yeah. And then when I did, okay, it's time for something new. And that's when we created the store. And it was I would say it was very challenging few years, especially when a year and a half later, you go into the pandemic.
Yeah.
And now you're closed.
Yeah. How long were you guys actually closed for?
Well, during the first lockdown, we shut down. And then things started to open up again, like they did in the nightlife, like they did in the hospitality industry. Retail opened up. And then, we got slammed with another lockdown again in November.
Yeah.
And at that point, we went to our landlord and we said, we're not locking down. We're going to stay open.
Wow. Good for you guys.
And he said, go for it.
Amazing.
He said, fuck Doug Ford.
Yeah.
Keep your doors open.
Yeah.
You have my support. And when you have support from your landlord, because, there's a lot of places that don't have that luxury. Maybe they're going to have their doors locked or have their licenses taken away. We remained open, and we remained open for our VIPs and some clients. And, not to say we were thriving, right? Because we weren't. We were able to make ends meet and get through the pandemic.
Yeah. Yeah. And, following your posts and what you share, it's really inspiring. And I love the stance you take, the information that you post and bring awareness to, because so much of what's going on, especially here in Toronto and in Ontario, the restrictions and these ever-changing policies and mandates that are being enforced really make no sense.
They make no sense at all.
Kudos to you being a small business owner who's managed to survive through the pandemic, to say, fuck it, I'm going to open and have the support of your landlord. Like, I don't know who your landlord is, but
He's awesome. Jeff Hall.
Props
Hallmark.
to you. Hallmark. Oh, cool.
They own everything on Ossington and Queen.
Yeah, they're a big company.
You know, he's not a small fry.
Yeah.
But he's awesome, and he helped us a lot through the pandemic, and just a great team player.
Yeah, and I wish more landlords would take that stance as well, because, you know, we had to close Everly because of, our landlord still wanted rent from us, wasn't looking to extend our lease.
You didn't see the bigger picture.
Yeah, so that landlord, I'm not going to call you out right here, asshole. Thank you. But we had to close Everly because we weren't going to keep paying dead rent, and as a result, that space is empty for the last year and a half.
What a joke.
And
it could have been open.
Good for you for continuing to push on and, stand up for your, for your rights and for your business. And, the content you share is very much appreciated. Like, I'm sure you get tons of comments and posts and reshares. You really are, I would say, courageous with what you're putting out there. And I think what you endorse and the stance you take is something that many more entrepreneurs could consider doing it as well, because until enough people stand up and push back, they're just going to keep enforcing these mandates and policies and restrictions that are ultimately going to shut down the small businesses while Walmart and Amazon and the large corporate businesses thrive, which I think is just complete bullshit.
And the Blue Jays games and the Leaf games. You can go to a Leafs game or a Raptors game and go to any one of the restaurants and they have full capacity, but the restaurant that's outside of the stadium is at 50% capacity.
It's ridiculous.
How does that make sense?
Yeah. I feel for our boy Matty, owning Borrow, Myth, Dasha, Petty Cash, owning all these amazing properties, paying hundreds of thousands of dollars of rent a month, and ACC's, or not the ACC, the Scotiabank Arena is packed. It's Sky to Rogers Center. Yeah. I'm old when I'm calling the Sky to Rogers Center Sky Dome.
He doesn't know what we're talking about.
Millennials. And it's just, I feel for them, and selfishly, I'm also very happy that closed Blowfish in 2018, because it's like, wow, it's just, it's hard, so I just want to give you props, acknowledge you for what you're sharing, what you're putting out there. And, it takes balls to do that, it takes courage to stick your neck out and share. So,
I started, sharing content and just speaking up and asking questions during that second lockdown. Of course, when the pandemic started, we were all afraid, we were all cautioned, but something didn't sit right when the second lockdown happened. I felt like small businesses and entrepreneurs were really getting the short end of the stick, and it didn't make any sense to me. And I mentioned this on another podcast. There was one day where I just said, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm getting a little bit of backlash. And people would reach out to me. I'd start getting DMs from other small business owners saying, we need you to continue to post, because we don't have a voice. Yeah. We don't have a platform. So you're our guy.
Yeah. And you're the voice for small businesses, because you do have a large following and you have been posting consistently. So I look forward to your posts. I actually learn a lot from your posts, because I don't have time to my posts. I don't have time to follow a bunch of these people, but you cherry pick the most relevant, I would say, important things that Toronto business owners or people that want to support Toronto business owners should know about.
And I think there's a big misconception about sharing content that you're an anti this or an anti that. No, I'm pro small business, pro entrepreneur, pro Toronto, and pro everyone that's working hard in the city to make ends meet. You know what I mean? And we've all had a rough 2 years now, and people want to start thriving again. Absolutely. People want to start living again, enjoying life and enjoying what they've worked so hard for.
And if we don't support the small businesses, then in a couple of years, you're just going to have big box chains, retail stores, big commercial restaurants,
Yep.
and the smaller, more unique individual places are going to be gone. And then people are going to be like, oh, I really miss that cute little cafe or restaurant on the corner. Well, you fucking should have been there.
Absolutely.
Instead of, supporting the big chains.
Yeah, it's so important to support your local small businesses on the daily, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's in an area like Ossington, there are so many cool, smaller independents, so, and I'm not knocking like Earl's or Cactus Club or any of these other, they're great establishments, but it's important to think about the little guy or little gal who, is literally working their restaurant, serving food and owning and operating, because that's how they got to make it work, so supporting local is super important during times like this. And for any of local business owners who, if there is another lockdown and they are enforcing new mandates and policies, like, fuck it, stay open, go for it,
speak up.
I could honestly say, if I was still in the restaurant industry, I'd be like, you know what, I'm staying open. I'd rather take the tickets, because until we start pushing back, they're just going to keep doing this shit to us.
Many people would always say to me, because I lost a few friends, I lost a few family members too, saying, well, why are you speaking out so much? You're going to lose your job. And I'm like, what are you talking about? We're in a fucking lockdown. I've already lost it. Yeah. Like, what are you talking about? Plus, I'm an entrepreneur. I own my own business. Yeah. Who's going to fire me?
Yeah. And it's not about losing your job. It's about taking back what's yours.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because the more we give, like, once they take it, they're not giving it back, so you got to fight back for it,
Absolutely.
So, and when I say fight, obviously I mean being a stand.
Yep.
Like knowing you're right, trusting what feels true for you, and not backing down, because until enough people back down, it's just going to keep happening, and I really admire the way you've, chosen to use your platform. And look, you could be just pushing your parties and just promoting all the stuff you're doing, and you've chosen to, I'd say, make a pivot with your platform to share information that's valuable and purposeful, because again, those small businesses, they don't have a voice, and there's many people who look at your content and what you're sharing to educate themselves.
Absolutely.
So that they know what they can do. So, for any of the business owners out there, what advice would you have for them to, thrive during this situation, during these times?
Well, don't give up. Definitely don't give up. First and foremost, never give up. Ask questions. Call your local MP. Call them every day. Call her every day until they pick up their phone, and just get involved with the community. Yeah. Get involved with other small businesses. Reach out to them. Yeah. See if they need any help or support, and help one another. Yeah. Because, as
power numbers, and
as Doug Ford likes to say, we're all in this together.
Yeah. Yeah. And community, and being able to have that support system of other entrepreneurs and people who are facing similar challenges is super important. Are there any communities, any groups that you're a part of that have supported you through this?
I linked up with Roman Baber, who was a former MP, who worked directly with Doug Ford. And when he spoke out against the lockdowns, he was removed from office. Yeah. And he's someone I've become close with over the last year and continue to speak with and learn from. And he continues to speak out and speak up for the little person, right? And right now he's speaking up for all the nurses that are being terminated from their jobs, the ones that were with us throughout the whole pandemic, fighting and helping people that were in need. Those same people are losing their jobs because they chose not to be vaccinated. And a lot of them chose not to be vaccinated because they might have a condition. It's very, very unfortunate, but
or they may have seen some of the adverse side effects that have happened, and they've been like,
maybe it's not time for me to have this.
Yeah,
maybe it's not time.
Yeah,
And I talk to people every day about vaccines, and like I said, I'm not pro this or anti this. Do what's best for you.
Sure. Yeah,
and do what feels right.
That's it. Whatever your choice, honor what is true for you. Don't do it because you feel pressured. Don't do it because obviously a lot of people their jobs are being threatened, their family events are being threatened, and if that's important enough to you and you're willing to make that choice, go for it, but I hear some people say that they made a choice to do it because they wanted to go on a vacation,
Yep.
or they want life to resume back to normal. And again, whatever your choice is, stand in that. But if there's some resistance, if there's something inside you that's telling you, you know what, I don't want this, then you got to listen to that voice.
100%.
Yeah.
Especially if you have a condition.
Yeah. So, you're an entrepreneur. You pretty much work 2 jobs.
Yep.
You got your day job, your night job. You deal with a lot, and you're thriving in a pandemic. You mentioned earlier, you've got your practice, your routine.
Yes.
What are some of the things that you do to start your day in a way that no matter what comes at you, you've got it covered? Because you're always very calm, cool, collected, grounded. For the entrepreneurs out there who are freaking the fuck out because we're living in unparalleled times, what advice or guidance could you give them to find their
For anybody,
centeredness?
entrepreneur or not, wake up with a positive mindset and go have a kick-ass workout.
So
Whether
physical activity.
Whether it's
training.
going for a run
Mhm.
or lifting weights, deadlifts, whatever, yoga, whatever. Focus on yourself first, and your body and your mind will thank you. And the rest of the day is just going to be in cruise control.
Yeah. And your morning routine that you practice, for me, it's meditation, breath work, journaling, take my dog out for a walk.
Yep.
It's so important for that first, 45 minutes of the day. Take that for yourself. Make sure that you're filling your own cup before you go out there and give to everybody else.
Absolutely.
So before you turn on your cell phone, before you get into all your emails, it's so important to do something, whether it be going for a run, lifting weights, yoga, do something that has you feel an elevated emotion.
Absolutely.
And then bring that vibe into everything else.
It's the best reward you can give yourself.
Yeah.
Drink a lot of water.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a game changer. Yeah.
People are definitely going to think we're sponsored by Cycle Water. I don't know.
Where's the check, Cycle?
Neighborhood just left these out for us. We just started drinking them, but now we're like the Cycle ambassadors.
I know what they do.
Now I know why they left them out. Smart thinking. Yeah. Man, I've been wanting to sit down and catch up with you for a while. We've known each other for 2 decades.
It's been incredible.
Yeah, and it's been really nice watching your evolution and growth from the sidelines.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
What were some of your favorite venues in Toronto in nightlife?
Yeah. So for me, Fluid will always have a special place in my heart. It's where I started my first Sunday night party. And
I remember that story because you moved to Miami to bartend.
Yeah.
And you lived in South Beach.
Yeah.
And you stayed there for how long?
I was there over 2 years. I was there for 10 months.
2 years.
Yeah.
And I remember hearing that story about how you came back to Toronto and you started South Beach Sundays at Fluid.
Yeah.
And was that the birth of ZRF?
Yeah. So I had started that Sunday night event, and about 6-7 weeks into it, Ralph Maddie started showing up with his crew, and he really liked the music and the vibe. And I remember he said to me, so good little party you got going on here, and I see you got half the club closed. And at the time, I didn't really know Ralph. I just knew him from government because when I bartended there, he was a promoter. And he was like, what do you think about me bringing my DJ Aubrey Marcus, and he'll play on that side, I'll host that side, you host this side.
Wow.
And we'll take the numbers from 300 to 400 to 700 to 800. I thought about it for maybe a whole 10 seconds, and I was like, yeah, cool, let's do it. All right, sure, sounds good. And in that moment, I chose to work with Ralph, not knowing that would evolve into a 20-year partnership.
That's incredible.
So Sundays, just like Ralph said, went from 400 to 800. Long weekends, we'd do 1,400 through the doors. And Sundays at Fluid is really what put us out there, because for the first time, there was a curated event in Toronto where you needed to know someone to get in, and the music and the whole experience was really designed just to offer people something unique. And having lived in Miami and traveled to New York, we were able to bring a new flavor to Toronto.
Yeah,
so
that was a story that stuck close to me because I was coming from New York at the time. I'm like, wow, this guy.
Yeah.
He brought what he learned from Miami and brought it to Toronto.
And, talking
Even
about
the fashion.
failure, and the fashion as well, with bringing the whole white dress code and all that. I remember, and you'll laugh at this because Carl, big man Carl, who is an icon in, Toronto nightlife scene.
Yep.
He was
Legendary.
working the door at Fluid, and I remember standing there, and I was so, present to who was walking in because I was really curating the crowd. I remember this group of like 3 or 4 big dudes with leather jackets walk in, and they definitely weren't the Sunday night crowd. And I ran to the door. I'm like, Carl, who are these guys? Why did you let in these big Gino-looking dudes? And he was like, oh, bro, relax. You're here to buy bottles. Relax. I'm like, look, I understand the bar needs to do sales and they got to make money, but letting guys like that in are going to throw off the vibe.
Yep.
He's like, bro, I got to make sure this night makes money or it's, or they're going to shut it down. I said, that's okay. If it shuts down, if it fails, let it fail on my terms. I don't want it to fail because you let in a bunch of guys who didn't belong here just for the money. And we literally had like a face off, and Carl's a 6'4",
he's a big man,
large guy. And then the numbers started going up week by week. It went from 200 to 250 to 300 to 350, and it became Sundays. Like Sundays were an institution at Fluid, and Carl then became my biggest supporter because he saw I had a vision. I was relentless. I was going to make it happen. And, years later, Carl was our head doorman at Maison. We've worked together for so long. So just a story about, choosing to do it your way and not being afraid to fail. Because
Absolutely.
At least if you try it your way and you failed on your own terms. You haven't failed because you gave into fear. You gave into the pressure of others,
For sure.
So I would say Fluid, definitely one that's very special to my heart. Obviously, Century Room was legendary. It was the first time bottle service was really introduced in Toronto. And I think we really brought something special to King Street and to Toronto in general.
I love Century Room. I really enjoyed working there.
Yeah, thank you. And Atelier. Atelier, even that was only open for 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
It was a very small venue. Something unique, something when it's that small you could really play around and experiment. So yeah, that's how I would say it was my top 3. And of course, Blowfish, I mean, always and forever, that for me was my number one venture in 2003, and that one really changed my life. So I love each one in a different way, but yeah, that's of the 12 companies I've created, I'd say those are kind of the ones that stand out the most.
Amazing.
Yeah. Well, look, man, I thank you so much for joining me for this. I'm so happy we got a chance to sit down and just drop in and, go down memory lane.
Absolutely.
20 plus years down memory lane. And I look forward to continuing to witness your growth and evolution.
And you as well.
And thank you. And would love to have you come down and visit me in the jungle.
We've got
coming. All kinds of vegan restaurants.
Amazing.
Lots of mango and fresh fruit. And yeah, man, it's awesome what you're doing. Please keep doing it. Keep being that voice for the small businesses. And, if I could support and help in any way,
Thank you.
I got you.
Amazing.
Yeah. Thanks, you, brother.
Zach.
Yeah, man.
Appreciate it.
See you.